today's lesson is the rule to figure out if a fraction is equal to 1/2. So this is our half of our whole. This is our whole. This is half of the whole. This is 1/2. So we can see that this is 1/2, or 1 part out of 2. But there's a lot of other fractions that are equal to 1 part out of 2, but they're called different fraction names because of how many pieces they're broken into. So our rule is to look at the numerator and to look at the denominator. If we see that the numerator, the top number, is half of the denominator, the bottom number, then it's equal to 1/2, which is easy to see on this fraction. The other way to look at it is the denominator twice or 2 times what the numerator is? Okay, so we're going to look at some other fractions and we're going to ask ourselves those questions. First one is this was our whole, so we're only looking at the equivalent amount to 1/2. So is this, which is 2/4, is it equal to 1/2? We can see visually that it's equal to 1/2, but if we were just looking at the fraction, how could we figure out whether it was 1/2? So we ask ourselves, is the numerator half of the denominator? The denominator's 4, so 2 is half of the denominator. The other way to look at it is to ask yourself, is the denominator twice or 2 times the numerator? And it is. You would have to multiply 2 times 2 to get 4. So this fraction is equal to 1/2. Okay, we're going to look at another fraction and ask ourselves those same questions. All right, so this time we're looking at our whole, which we can see all put back together. It's a whole. If we're looking at just this part, but we were just looking at the fraction number, we would write it 3 parts out of 6. And so we want to ask ourselves, is the numerator, the top number, is it half of the denominator, the bottom number? Is the denominator twice the amount of the numerator? Is it 2 times? Is the denominator 2 times this numerator? And if you multiplied 3 times 2, you would get 6. So just looking at this fraction, we can see that it is equivalent to 1/2 just by looking at the fraction written down. Our next fraction we're going to look at is 4/8. Looking at the number 4/8, we can see that the numerator is half of the denominator. The denominator is 2 times the numerator. Going on, we have our last one we're going to look at, and that is 5/6. I'm sorry, 5/10. 5/10. Okay, So we ask ourselves, is the numerator half of the denominator? And it is. Is the numerator, is the denominator 2 times the numerator? This is twice the numerator, so you would multiply the numerator times 2 to get the denominator. So you can see that 5 is half of 10. So you can see that just by looking at this number, that this is equivalent to 1/2.